If you have an idea that you genuinely think is good, don't let some idiot talk you out of it. That doesn't mean that every wild notion you come up with is going to be genius. If there is something that you feel is good, something you want to do, something that means something to you, try to do it. Because I think you can only do your best work if you're doing what you want to do, and if you're doing it the way you think it should be done, and if you can take pride in it after you've done it. No matter what it is. You can look at it and say, I did that, and I think it's pretty damn good. That's a great feeling.
So don't worry about that big build. We're not going to be doing anything like that. We're going to stick to a more traditional design. And Simon has done an amazing job on this. He's captured that vintage aesthetic and I absolutely love it. He's been working so hard for the last week and a half. And I've been studying these vintage cameras and vintage architecture and just looking at the love which has gone into everything, including, constructions, designs. Everything just looks so much more pleasing. Like there's a lot more thought that's gone into it. But I know what you're thinking. So I bet you're asking yourself, why did we build this big back for the Blackmagic Micro Cinema camera? It's a very small camera, but I know a lot of people like to shoot with Super 8 and Super 16 style. So because of that, we wanted to do something really crazy. Before we get into anything else and we show you the build, I want to show you a bit more footage. Okay, so let's get into the build now, and it's not very technical at all. You don't need many tools, maybe a glue gun, some 3M tape, and at most you're going to need a screwdriver, but that's probably about it. And I've got the cheap monitor in here at the moment, the £35 monitor. Now remember, all files are going to be linked down below, so everything you need is going to be there. Anything I speak about here, whether it's a screw or a heat insert or anything, is going to be linked down below. First of all, I want to talk about the printing side of things. When you print the body, I would suggest you print it with the access hole. This is the access holes for your cables, your HDMI and your any kind of cables you have. I would print these facing downwards, okay? So you've got your 2 1/4-20s on this side. Those are facing up. Your cable run is going to be facing down. Now, this is going to give you the cleanest print what I've found. If you're better than me and your printer's dialed in, by all means, print it the best way you find. But the only really rough edge you're going to get is this edge here. And that's quite a small edge because it's got a big hole there. Also, it's going to allow you to take all of your supports off and stuff very easily. So basic supports, you don't need any tree supports or anything, just basic supports. And in fact, I encourage basic support as well, because a tree support for certain parts of this are a bit of a nightmare to get off. And with basic supports, even for the battery compartment, it just lifts out in one piece. And that's the kind of print that you want. And even if I pop out the back piece now, you can see most of it's just going to come off very easily, yeah, and clean. So I would suggest normal supports for printing. Now I want to show you how you construct the cheap basic £35 monitor from AliExpress. Once you've printed all your files, you can then take the screen frame. You don't need to print this frame if you're using a Sakui monitor, but if you want to use it later on, I suggest you print it. We're then going to take this screen from AliExpress and we are going to insert this into the screen frame. So you can see I've written top here, but the bottom is with the cable. So wherever the cable is, that is the bottom of the frame. And you're going to slide it into this gap here, and there's a little groove at the bottom and at the top on each side. So just fold the ribbon back very carefully and then slide it through the gap. Be careful, don't catch the ribbon, don't force it in, but it fits in quite easily. And just give it one last push to make sure it's tucked in nicely. We're then going to take the driver board and put this in. Now you can see the gold pins, they face the top. You can't really get this wrong, so just lift up the brown tab on the driver board and then slot the ribbon directly in. The ribbon isn't that fragile, but still be careful with it. And that's in and done. Then we're going to take the frame. Now you can see we've got the slim part at the bottom. This goes on the same side as the insert, the heat insert. Slide it underneath the gap and then just slide it right along. Then we're going to take the side with the HDMI and the micro USB and we're going to rotate it to your left. So hold the ribbon in place, be very careful, and then just rotate it to the left. It's got to go underneath the little groove at the bottom as well. So make sure you get it in there and then just rotate it. We've actually updated this monitor frame so it fits better, and the circuit board driver will sit completely on top of it. But this is how it should look. Again, paying attention to the ribbon. And then once you've held it there, you can then put on some 3M tape on either side of the frame, just as I've done here. Rotate it to the left, underneath the groove, remember, at the bottom. And then just press it and stick it down. Make sure you get it as far to the right as possible. You can see the ribbon is bent there, but that's okay. Just get it far to the right as possible because you need space for your HDMI and micro USB to get in. And once you've done that, you can just put some hot glue around the edges just to hold it in place. And I suggest holding it in place with some sort of hot glue, because when you put your cables in, you don't want the circuit board driver to be moving backwards and forwards. So as you can see, I've got my cables in now. My cables were actually quite big, so I had to heat up the ends just to get a curvature on them, to angle them. So try to get the smallest cables which you can find. The smaller, the better. And then you can just see the hot glue there, which I've put around the frame. This is going to hold everything in place. And then finally, just put in your heat insert and you are done. And now putting this in the M16 back is exactly the same as the Sakui monitor. Okay, so that's the cheap basic monitor. And the only thing I've got to add to that, and this applies to whether you're using the Sakui monitor or you're using the cheap AliExpress monitor, is get the smallest, thinnest cables you can find, whether you're powering it by USB or DC cable. Get the smallest ones you can find, because there's not much room in here, as you're going to see once you put your Npf plate. I've got this Smallrig small cable here, and even that end is quite big. You know, it's a bit too big for the, let me see if I can get this in. That's a bit too big to go in there. I can work with that, but it's a bit too big. So I'm going to link the one that I actually use so you can get one of the smallest cables. But by all means, if you know anything smaller, please let us know in the comments. Okay, so once you've put all your heat inserts in, you can put them in, you know, for your Npf plate, and you can put yours in for the sides as well. And obviously the tripod plate, I haven't put one in here, but you can put one in for your tripod. And what you're going to notice about the model when you get it, you're going to get a big hole on the edge here, and you're going to get another 1/4 mount hole here. Now this is so you can mount plates outside. So if you've got an Npf plate, you want to put a bigger battery on for any reason. If you want to do long form stuff, then you can put it outside. Or if you've got a V mount, you can put it outside as well. And then you can just run your power cables through from the power plate right through the hole in the body of the M16 back. Okay, so once you've got that all built out, you want to start assembling. So first of all, I've got the Smallrig Npf plate here. If you can find something that's a bit smaller, then I would suggest going with that. For the cheap monitor, you're going to need one with a USB plug on the side. And I would suggest getting one with the plugs on the side as well, because if you get them at the front, or, you know, the front or the back, because there's not much room in there, you're not going to have much room to run your cables. So on the sides is going to be the best way to do this. So before you put your plate in, you want to plug in your DC cables on both sides. Yeah, this one and this one to go to the monitor and one to go to the camera. There's a big groove in the back end here. You won't be able to see it, I don't think, but there's a big groove in the back end where your cables will run. So once you've put them on, put your cables through the hole here. That one would go to your camera, and then there will be another one inside for your monitor, and then you can screw down your Npf plate. Okay, so once that's in, then I want you to kind of turn the Npf plate so it's at an angle. Can you see mine's at an angle now? And the reason why it's at an angle is because the DC connector is right here. So you want to kind of flatten that out so it sits down there. And then when you've got your HDMI in the back of your Sakui monitor, or you've got it on the cheaper monitor, it's going to give you room to put the HDMI and the battery cable in. Otherwise, you're going to find things too tight. But once you mess around with it, it will be okay anyway. You'll figure it out. I figured it out, so you figured it out. Put your internal Npf battery in. Let's get that in. And then we're going to put the monitor in, and we're going to fix it to the outside of the casing. Now you can see my 1/4 screw here is quite long. It's probably just over 1 centimeter, so you'll need one of those. I'll try and link one of these in the description as well, but a 1/4 screw that's quite long, that would just go in the bottom here, and then you'd screw it into the bottom of the monitor, and then your monitor is fixed in place. And that's literally it. From there, you can choose your different kinds of panels which you want, which kind of custom panels you want, and then you can just connect your panels up, and that will be it. Also, we have a little hole here. I don't know if you can see it. We've got one there, and we've got a magnet in here. So we'll link the magnets as well. And then once you put those on, these will just pop on, and then they will just sit in the gap, and then they won't come off, but you can remove them if you want to. And that's pretty much it, the build. We had the idea of being able to take off the panel and change in the Npf plate, but you can see it's so tight. Even on the cheap monitor, which is thinner, it's still so tight. So for you guys that are used to running with Super 8 or Super 16 style cameras, you know, changing out film and stuff like that, it's going to be simple for you. But let me just show you how quickly it is to do once you get used to it. So just take the screw out, lift out your monitor. Obviously your cables are going to be on there, so be careful of those. Take your battery off. Put in your new one. And then put this down again inside, and then you just screw this down. And then that's it. You've got a fresh battery ready to run. So it's quite simple to build. I can't say anything more than that. And just go over the heat inserts again. You've got your 2 heat inserts in the top, and they will be your heat inserts that will hold in your rod rail. You've got your 2 heat inserts on the side, and this can be for any other, mics or neck straps or anything you've got. This side has got no heat inserts at all. And then you've got your screw at the back. And as I said, looking at the model, you'll see your model has a hole on the bottom and another 1/4 for, external batteries and stuff like that. So yeah, very, very simple, easy to do build. Now on the cheap screen, you can't use DC. I mean, there might be a DC converter in there, but it's probably going to end up being with a transformer or something. So it's going to end up being too big. So I've got an Npf plate that has a USB. They used to be really cheap on AliExpress, but for some reason they're expensive now. I paid about £17. Now I can only find them for about 35. But if you know of one that can connect a micro USB for the monitor into a USB-C, because most of them seem to have USB-C these days, let me know of the cable and then I can link it down below so people can find it. Now, as I said before, the caveats on the cheap monitor versus the more expensive monitor, the Sakui. Sakui can do all frame rates, 24, 25, 30, 50, 60, whatever, and anything else in between. With the cheap monitor, you can only do 50 frames per second, unfortunately, and upwards. But because I shoot predominantly 50, I prefer to run with this one because we've got 600 nits versus 1000 nits. And the pixel density is extremely good on this cheap monitor. Don't get me wrong, the Sakui is good for the size, and obviously you get false color, focus peaking. So if you take this out and you put it on the front, then you've got a lot more options to run with this monitor. Great as an external monitor as well, for a small external, but I prefer to run with this one. So I've got this really long tripod plate on the bottom, which connects both the micro to the M16. And I like this because not only can I put my handle on there with a normal mini Arca Swiss. So let me show you my handle quickly. So I've just got a Arri handle. These have really jumped up in price now, but you can use any handle that's got a 1/4 on the top, because then you can just screw in a normal cheap Arca Swiss tripod plate, screw it down to the bottom, and then you've got your handle ready to go. Just screw it on. Now, the reason I've gone for this longer one is because even though this isn't really heavy, I can put a lot more heavy stuff on this, especially if I was going to put MPF. So with the longer one, it allows me to bolt the camera to the M16 plate, giving me a lot more stability. With something like the expansion pack, these are designed to be really light, so you don't really need it, but you can do that if you want to, because it's got a 1/4 on the bottom. But here, I just use a long plate. And also what this allows me to do is I can adjust this forwards and backwards depending on the lens size, so I can get this perfectly balanced, which is it's very handy. So the good thing about having this as an expansion pack is that you can easily switch it out. Fantastic if you want that Super 8 style run gun thing, or if you want it a bit bigger and it can match your BOLEX. You can also switch it out very quickly just by releasing the camera and then putting it straight onto your expansion pack. And now you have a tiny run and gun setup, which is so much smaller. Even if I take off this hood, we've gone to a little tiny baby handheld setup. And this is what I love about the Sakui monitor as well. It really gives you the chance to switch it up. So you have some great options there depending on what you want to do. And the fact that they're both so cheap, the expansion pack is only like $60. And then you've got this, which you can print for free, is absolutely amazing. Now, if you can't print or you don't know anyone locally and you want us to make this, then you're going to be paying us around $80, excluding shipping. And even though we're giving this away for free, there's still a bit of work that goes into this. Obviously, you've got the filament, then the time printing it, then we've got to put in the heat inserts, etc. So, there is going to be a charge for that, and it's going to be about $80, and we'll put that up on the website if you want to order from us. And yeah, that's about it. You'd have to order the screen yourself from AliExpress, and once you do order it, make sure you check it before you start installing things to make sure it works. But yeah, they usually come good, and I haven't had a broken one yet. So I think that's about it for the build. I don't think I've missed anything. If I've missed anything, I'll put it in the first post and just make a note of that, of anything else. But yeah, as you can see, it's so easy to install. A child could do it. So that's it, guys. That's the end of the video. And Simon, my brother, you did an amazing job on this camera. And I hope you guys have fun remixing this. Do not sell it, but remix it. Do what all kind of crazy colors you want to do. Now, this is going to be the last mod before we drop the Cine Pi in about 6 weeks or so. But we have one last surprise for you coming soon, and this is crazy.